Last word on sports. 4th down on 4.
Welcome into 4th down on 4. I'm Scott Cody. Preseason games, meaningless games? Roman Harper and Robert Meacham would disagree. Plus, LSU has nowhere to go but down. Tulane nowhere to go but up. How can expectations, or the lack thereof, affect the 2007 college football season? Those stories coming up. But first, the Saints back at training camp, trading in the conditioned air of the Superdome for the record heat of Jackson. And Juan Kincaid has an update.
As we enter the final week of Camp Payton here in Jackson, we find that there's plenty left to get right, leading up to the season opener at Indy on September 6th. First and foremost, the injury situation. Devery Henderson hurt on this play against Buffalo last Friday. Couldn't do much more than this today.
Looking at a week and a half, 2 weeks, it's not a tear, so that was positive. You know, it's something that, you know, he's moving around better today. MRIs and the tests on it, you know, kind of revealed a grade 2, but so we'll see where he's at. But that, you know, I guess was better news than if it was more significant.
Less significant now, the status of Scott Fujita. A water park accident last week kept him on crutches all weekend. He expects to be back up and running tomorrow. But today, we shared a laugh on what actually happened.
We had this offense versus defense competition. It started last year. I was the defending champion, so I had to defend my belt. And I don't know what it is, the aerodynamics of my body or something, but I come down those slides extra fast, and I actually just flew right out the end of the slide into a wooden fence. And could have been a lot worse. Yeah, busted through a couple 2x2s, and I'm hoping if we go back next year, they just extend the bottom of that slide another 100 feet or so. But the important thing is that I'm fine and the defense won.
As for where this team is right now, Payton said he's happier than he was after the Steelers loss, especially with his first-team offense.
I thought the tempo was good. You know, I thought Drew played sharp. I thought the offensive line did a good job with their protection in their run game. We got a lot of down safety looks and some man and single safety zone coverage looks. So, you know, we threw it a little bit, but, you know, by and large, that was pleasing.
It's important for the offense to get a feel for each other, for Drew to get a feel for the receivers, for Deuce and Reggie to get, you know, a feel for the linemen, so that's what we did.
But there are still some concerns. Robert Meacham, despite the touchdown catch against Buffalo, hasn't shown the type of consistency expected from a first-round selection.
It's not there, you know. You have one touchdown or you have one catch and, you know, all of a sudden you have a drop. That's not what you're here for. You know, you're here to catch everything that comes your way.
And Payton's glaring eyes are fixed on the special teams' not-so-special performance against Buffalo. He says that area has got to get better, especially the play of returner Lance Moore.
I think Lance is smarter than that, and I think he's usually a pretty smart player, but he understands that. You know, usually when you get backed up, you put your heels at the 10 and you don't go any further. So we'll correct that.
So plenty of things to work on as Saints camp gets set to move out of Jackson on to Cincinnati and eventually back to Airline Drive.
I like the fact that we're going to change things up. I like the idea of Wednesday, us, you know, traveling to Cincinnati and, you know, getting 2 practices in against a different team. You know, they're really going to be practices much like you guys have been seeing, and where, you know, we'll just have 2 different units going at the same time. But you know, you want to continue to work on the little things, the execution, and I think the change in regards to the players going against different people and seeing different looks is a good thing, and so that'll be something we look forward to.
Joining us now live from the campus of Millsaps College up in Jackson, Juan Kincaid, and that Devery Henderson hamstring had to make a lot of people nervous. I think the first thought that pops into a lot of people's head, Dante Stallworth.
Boy, Scott, that's a great comparison because you don't know how Devery's going to come back from this. We always remember how Dante Stallworth came back from it. He hardly did. He would come back re-injured, and hamstring injuries are very delicate situations. It could feel great after 2 weeks of rest, but because that scar tissue builds up, it gets a lot tougher than a regular hamstring, and you can easily tear it once again. Sean Payton's saying it's not a tear, but it's like a second-degree type of hamstring injury, so it's going to take a lot of rest, a lot of ice, and a lot of stretching to get that thing back, and then you got to start working yourself back into it. So we hope he takes his time with it. It's a good thing it happens in the preseason. I don't think we'll see Devery Henderson anymore in this preseason for the Saints right now.
And Juan, while he's out, obviously David Patton has that turf toe. Terrence Copper maybe moving into that 3 spot. Who did you see working there this afternoon?
Well, I think Terrence Copper is your likely option there, because Terrence has actually had a couple of good games in the preseason, particularly the game against Buffalo. Came up with about 4 catches, I believe. But Terrence Copper is the natural guy you push into that spot. He showed last year that he has wide receiver ability. He's also a specialist on the special teams as well, which is where he would make this team if it weren't with the wide receivers. But I think the fact that he's a valuable commodity for Peyton, he coached the guy when he was with the Cowboys. So I think Terrence Copper is a guy that you can move right in there and not really miss a beat. But I think they would really like to have, obviously, Devery Henderson back and obviously get David Patton back as well. Patton, in Peyton's words, he believes Patton may be back, maybe not for this preseason game coming up, but for the 4th preseason game.
Let's go back to the special teams. You talked about that being kind of the glaring weak spot Friday. Sean Payton didn't like the penalties, didn't like the blocked punt or blocked field goal, and obviously didn't have very many kind words for Lance Moore. How do you see them correcting that, and did they make any personnel moves?
Scott, right now, Sean Payton thinks that the special teams, and he really said this at the beginning of camp, that is the one area where there's so much uncertainty. Doesn't know who his punt returner is going to be, has no idea who his kick returner is going to be. Lance Moore serving the purpose for both of those. You know, the kicking situation is obviously wrapped up with Lindell Murray, but the punting situation right now is a two-headed fight there. Got 2 guys battling for a spot, and Sean Payton said today that they are even. So there's a lot of question marks on the special teams area, and that's a position that last year was so solid with this football team. Very few penalties. You know, the kicking game was great with John Carney. The punting game was solid with Steve Weatherford. But this year, just so many question marks. I think Sean Payton, if there's anything he's concerned about, it is that special team situation. Lance Moore, again, is your punt returner and kick returner, but he didn't have a good second game. Didn't take the old 10-yard rule at the end zone. Went back, caught the ball, got stopped at his own 3-yard line. So, but again, those are mistakes that are easily correctable, but they have to get better on special teams. And I think Sean Payton's a little concerned about it right now.
Yeah, I think Lance Moore's got to get better, or we're going to have to see a lot more of Reggie Bush back there filling punts. Juan Kincaid in Jackson. We'll catch up with him a little bit later in the show. But as we head to break, Roman Harper needed to hit and be hit as he recovers from a knee injury. And Robert Meacham's not quite ready to put on his dancing shoes, but a few touchdowns, and he may have to cut loose. Much more when we come back. 4th down rolls on.
He's been great with me in practice and in the games, and you know, great to come off the field and talk to a Pro Bowler. You know, he knows what he's doing, and you know, he's helped me out a lot. So you know, it was good coming off, comforting coming off, and having him talk to me.
Every young quarterback's going to do that. I mean, how many interceptions Peyton Manning threw his first year? You know, 28 or something. And I mean, it's just something every young quarterback did. I got benched 3 times in my career for turning the ball over. So I think every guy learns. Some learn faster than others, and some learn the hard way. And unfortunately, that's just part of the deal.
Tyler Palko throwing the lone touchdown for the Saints against the Bills. He also has thrown all 3 interceptions this preseason for the Saints. But he seems to have the right guy in his corner. In our corner up in Jackson is Juan Kincaid. He was at practice today, and Palko, one of 5 arms in camp right now for Sean Payton. He said that that's too many. When should we expect a move at that position, and who might be on the short end?
Well, first off, Scott, Sean said that's going to be all dictated by positions in camp. If there's a need, say someone goes down injured, they got to have a body in there. Well, what they'll do is they'll bring somebody in to fill that position, and therefore one of those quarterbacks, likely Matt Baker, will be sent home packing or sent somewhere else if he can pick on with another team. But yeah, the problem is with 5 quarterbacks is simple. You only have so many reps in practice, and right now, 3 and 4, Fife and Palko, those guys are getting very little reps as it is. So Baker has no opportunity to get a chance. His only chance may come in a preseason game. So I wouldn't think that they'll carry 5 quarterbacks past this next preseason game. But you never know what Sean Payton might do. If he doesn't like those 3 and 4 guys, maybe one of those guys gets sent out and Baker steps in at number 4.
You know, and one of the positives with an asterisk, if you will, was that first-team offense being able to move the chains. But once they got to the 20, once again stalling, something they ran into last year, a problem that they ran into last year. Any word on what happened down there? Was it just a lack of focus?
Well, it's one thing Billy Miller said to me this afternoon, Scott. He said, you know what? We moved the ball. At one point, we were at the 2-yard line and moved it all the way down in field goal position, and we didn't even use any trick plays. He said there are going to be times in the regular season, many times, where we're going to use a 4th down call and use a trick play and get a 1st down. So I think that's the encouraging part. They were very vanilla But, you know, their offense looked great, but it was very vanilla going against Buffalo, and they still moved the ball with relative ease against that defense. That defense is not Pittsburgh's defense, but yet at the same time, the Saints didn't play that well offensively against Pittsburgh they did against Buffalo. So I don't think there's any cause for concern over that. We reflect back last year, this team didn't score very many touchdowns in the preseason either, but yet they ended up having the #1 offense in the NFL. So I don't think you put too much stock into not scoring points right now. I think you worry more about this team becoming efficient between the 20s, getting things in touchdown scoring position, and then go from there.
Right, Juan. And now holding opponents, that was a question mark, especially after that Hall of Fame game. But the first team defense holding Buffalo to just a field goal in the first half, a much better performance than that Hall of Fame game, where the Steelers went deep on the second play of the game and put the Saints in an early hole Friday. The Bills' second offensive play had a much different outcome, and it seems when safety Roman Harper's in the game, that tends to happen. Answers to the Saints' secondary questions should be answered somewhat by the return of Roman Harper this season. But before Friday's preseason game with Buffalo, his first since a season-ending knee injury back in Week 5, Roman Harper had some questions of his own. And they were all answered with this tackle on the Bills' second play from scrimmage.
It definitely answered a little bit of questions. I felt great out there. I felt pretty comfortable. My knee felt really good on the turf, and I was always concerned about turf, you know, how it holds up, stuff like that. And it really held up well and flew around well, got to get in some action, played 2 quarters, so no pain at all, felt really great. Made some tackles, had a little contact, got hit low a couple of times. It all felt good, you know. I kind of got over the whole getting low thing, got hit low, I didn't even pay attention to it, so that was good. Just, you know, just getting out there, getting to play football, just, you know, with the guys again, that was always a great time. And they were joking with me earlier, you know, it's been a while since I strapped up with them, so it's been good.
And the Saints' defense was better with Harper in the lineup last season. In his 5 games, only once did an opponent have a scoring play of 30 yards or more. In the 11 games without Harper, the Saints' defense gave up 11 touchdowns of 30 yards or more.
He's someone that's started for us before and is pretty instinctive.
And Friday night, those instincts were honed in. Meanwhile, rookie receiver Robert Meacham has had little to smile about since being the 27th overall pick until the 4th quarter of Friday's game.
Touchdown, Robert Meacham.
It's one of the greatest feelings in the world, I would say, besides having my little girl, you know. That was one of the next best things, you know, because it's a dream coming true. You always want to play in the NFL, and all of a sudden you get your first touchdown. And everybody asks you, what you're going to do, some kind of dance or something. But you're so excited on the inside, you don't know what to do.
Meacham didn't have a dance because he hasn't had time to work on one. Receivers coach Curtis Johnson has been in his ear all training camp, grilling Meacham on everything but cutting a rug.
He stays on me because he sees something in me that maybe I don't see right now. And I'm happy that he stays on me because I know I got potential to get better and better every day.
Meacham had run Friday's fade route plenty of times before. Back in college,
pretty much Tennessee, that's pretty much all we ran. Once we got in the red zone, we pretty much gonna throw the fade route.
And just before the game,
Coach CJ made me practice that catch every day after practice with Drew. So it was one of those things that was just like a second nature.
Hopefully, it was a good play by him, keeping his feet in bounds, and a good throw, good catch. So it was good to see. It's good to see a young guy like that make a play, and that was important.
Juan Kincaid joins us live again from Jackson. And Juan, can one catch, maybe even in the preseason, turn things around for Meacham? Here's a guy that is the anti-Ocho Cinco, if you will. I mean, so calm. What did you see from him today at practice?
Well, this is a guy that's still kind of trying to get himself right in the NFL, Scott. I asked him, I said, is it more about being consistent for you? And he said, yeah. He said, right now I'm catching a touchdown, and then I'm dropping the next easy pass. And he has exactly the same problems that Devery Henderson had over the last 2 seasons, you know, making all the big plays, but not able to make that little 5-yard end. When the ball hits him right in the hands, he drops it. So I think for Meacham, it's all about getting confidence. And the more he goes through the system here, the more Coach Curtis Johnson's in his ear, the more he's eventually going to get it. It's the speed of the game that's easy for him, he says right now. That's not a problem. It's being consistent, catching the ball. And, you know, nothing helps you out more than getting a touchdown reception, whether it be preseason or in the regular season, Scott.
Yeah, one short week, real quick. What do the Saints have planned? Obviously, probably no water parks this week.
They'll work out twice tomorrow in pads, both times, just shoulder pads in the afternoon, and they'll go through a light walkthrough on Wednesday before they hit the plane and head on up to Cincinnati. So Sean Payton said he loves the fact they're going to be practicing against someone else. You know, it's like playing someone else, but they'll go against their defense, so it should be a good time for his team.
All right, Juan Kincaid live in Jackson. Go get some rest. We're going to see you tomorrow. You at home, stay with us.
Saints play their third preseason game, second in the state of Ohio.
The Saints are a field goal underdog. They actually keep point spreads this time of the year. Unbelievable. But in August, the score is only a small part of the story in an NFL preseason game. The Saints are still in search of their first season victory, preseason victory that is. But winning's not at the top of Sean Payton's agenda for tonight. He says he wants to see improvement, especially from the young players.
After 2 games, the Saints' first-string offense has yet to score a touchdown. The starters say that doesn't alarm them. They're more concerned with keeping everyone healthy so they can slowly build toward the regular season opener. Frontline players like Jamal Brown, Devery Henderson, and Jeff Fain will be sidelined against the Bengals.
The main and key factor is just everybody getting back on the same page, so, you're in rhythm and you have your timing and everything down when you come out and play Indy. We have some guys that are banged up, so we hopefully will get those guys back pretty soon so we can go out there, whether it's next week or in 2 weeks, and see exactly, how well we can play.
While the Saints have a pretty good idea who will be their opening day starters, there are still plenty of backups battling for playing time and roster spots. And in that respect, tonight's game is crucial.
This stretch here really is a week and a half before the first round of cuts, and having to make some tough decisions are things that keep you thinking, and as a staff, we're looking to see how players respond, whether they're in the kicking game, whether they're on defense or on offense, and what kind of consistency we're getting. Do we feel like they're ready to help us right now? Do we feel like they're a player that can help us, but they're going to have to develop more?
The Saints starters are expected to play the first half, but Drew Brees will only go about the first quarter. He'll give way to second stringer Jamie Martin. And sometime in the third quarter, Matt Baker will take over for the balance of the game. Baker, a former Cowboys practice squad player who was signed by the Saints after the first preseason game, knows this is his best chance to make the team.
To me, it's always a must-play-well situation. In this situation, for any player, in my situation, Tyler's and Jason's, the undrafted guys, the late pick guys, everything's a must-play-well situation for these guys towards the end, right on the cut line.
One other scratch from tonight's game is receiver Marcus Colston, who's been experiencing some soreness in his right leg. Colston says it's not injured, it's just worn down from the rigors of training camp. And to tell you what I want to see out of tonight's game, I want to see a tough performance from Robert Meacham. He really hasn't shown me anything during training camp. A couple of days ago, watching him at training camp, he was noticeably limping. Apparently his knee's really still bothering him. He hasn't caught the ball well. He hasn't been tenacious. He hasn't been aggressive during training camp. And I'm starting to get a little bit concerned about how he's going to fit into the Saints receiver rotation this year.
I heard the same things about Devery Henderson about 3 years ago. Wasn't tough enough, couldn't catch the football. I think especially with rookie wide receivers, you have to give it time. I know that's not what people want to hear. They want immediate production from a guy who's being paid a lot of money. But it doesn't always work out that way, my friend. We'll see. In the Hall of Fame game, the Saints' defense or offense looked downright pedestrian. But 5 days later, the Saints were back to their very good old offensive ways. In 2007, the Saints will have many options to keep opposing defenses on its heels. The Saints' offense of the second half of '06 was on display in the first half against Buffalo. The Saints started fast by keeping the defense off balance. A draw play for Reggie Bush worked for 13 yards and a first down. A little later, how about a fake and a little bootleg to tight end Eric Johnson? Then Reggie lined up as a receiver, making an outstanding catch. On this drive, the Saints offense was again performing like the final 10 regular season games of last season. In 6 of those games, the Saints scored 30 points or more. The Saints are still using stuff that worked last year. Watch number 19, Devery Henderson, in the slot, cut inside and delay the linebacker assigned to Reggie Bush. Bush is able to catch the ball and head upfield. This sort of rub route is the same type used to spring Bush for his 88-yard TD reception in last January's NFC Championship game against the Bears. One of Sean Payton's goals for 07 should be red zone improvement. Last season, San Diego Chargers led the NFL, scoring a touchdown on 67.7% of their trips in the red zone. The Colts were second at 66.1. The New Orleans Saints 11th at 54.7. That number must go up. It only makes sense for the greatest city on the Mississippi River to have a riverboat gambler as a play caller. Last season, the Saints converted 12 of 20 fourth down attempts. The 20 attempts tied the New England Patriots for most fourth down attempts for a team with a winning record. One of the keys to the Saints offense last year was success on first down. That kept the offense out of long yardage situations. The Saints averaged almost 6 yards on first down plays. That was 4th in the league behind Philadelphia, Indianapolis, and Jacksonville.
From Division II obscurity to rookie NFL starter, the soft-spoken Jari Evans lets his play do the talking.
And which offense will make the most noise on the field this year? Is it the Peyton Manning-led attack of the Colts, or can the 2007 Saints be the same offensive juggernaut they were in 06? We'll talk best offense in the NFL next.
You're watching the Dodge Black and Gold season kickoff.
Welcome back to the Dodge Black and Gold season kickoff on CW38.
The Saints and their fans are tuning up for the start of the regular season. To check the pulse of those Saints fans, our Sheldon Fox is live in Laketown at the Laketown Grill in Kenner, that is. Sheldon, you're never shy about having a good time. What's going on over there?
Having a great time. Laketown Grill is the spot. You said it, Adam. It is live as usual for every preseason Saints game and every regular season Saints game. As those preseason games start to wind down and we get closer to the regular season, the crowd gets more lively, more people start to pour in, but we have the hardcores, the diehards all here at Laketown, and Tracy is a fan and a worker here. Tracy, talk to us if you could. How much energy comes into this place in and out every week when the Saints play, especially now, deep into the preseason?
Oh, I can't tell you how much. I mean, it is amazing. The amount of fans that we have, I mean, it brings so much energy into this place, and I mean, our fans truly love New Orleans and support our Saints.
Fans supporting the Saints, Tracy supporting them as a worker and as a fan herself. You having a beer on the job or what?
Oh, I'm off. I just got off not too long ago.
All right, she just got off. Everyone here at Laketown's loving it as well. Back to you.
All right, Sheldon Fox in America's City at Laketown Grill.
It's Kenner, is that right?
Kenner, yeah, America's City. Okay. Just checking to make sure that you're up on your geography, among other things, and your history as well. Now, let's talk about the Saints offensive line and a guy who's been a big part of it, Jari Evans, 4th-round pick last year. And Damon Darrensburg here to do that. D?
And when you think of the offensive production displayed by the Saints last year, the first names that probably come to mind are Drew Brees, Deuce McAllister, Reggie Bush, and Marcus Colston. Now, it's very rare that the offensive line gets much credit on a high-powered offense, but Saints fans should take notice. The Saints featured one of the most consistent O-lines in the league last year, and part of the consistency is coming from an unexpected source. When it comes to the NFL draft, not much is usually expected from small school offensive linemen, mainly because most are very undersized and lack the athleticism and strength to realistically compete in the NFL. But Jari Evans is a different story, and Coach Payton saw it in just a few snaps. As a rookie last year, the mammoth offensive lineman from Bloomsburg made the transition from college guard to pro tackle with ease. And year 2 with the Saints is expected to be a little easier.
Yeah, we were surprised that, they had those injuries early in camp, and the playbook was, it was thick. They give it all to you at once. So, but, last year I just was going hard, listening to the older guys, and they were putting me in the right direction. Well, definitely being a year under the playbook helps me a lot, but just being a year under the playbook, was in the heat last year, so I was ready for that, and just those two things pretty much.
Evans played a huge role in the Saints offense, whose quarterback was sacked only 18 times and passed for a league-leading 4,500 yards. And with all the buffet busters on the line returning, plus the innovation of Coach Payton keeping the team focused, Jari and the boys have reason to be optimistic about 2007.
Last year we had a great connection with each other and the chemistry, and it only goes up from there. So I think having everybody back again this year is big. I think you just starting from scratch, letting us know that 2006 is in the past. We got to move forward, and we just got to carry on and then bring it to 2007 and make a new identity for ourselves.
Now, guys, here's an example of the impact this guy had last year. Jari was the only Saints rookie in 2006 to start all 16 games.
And the Saints have done a really good job of rooting out these offensive linemen from small schools. I think Jermon Bushrod, the 4th-round pick, doesn't have, to me, an ounce of body fat on him. Is going to be a really good player at some point. And Zach Strief, who's been starting at left tackle when Jamal Brown is hurt, is a 7th-round choice.
They've done a great job in terms of that, and also just being able to bring the entire starting offensive line back from last year. I talked to Jeff Fay, and he said, look around the league. All the best starting offensive lines around the league have been together for at least a couple of years. He said this is the first time in his career he's ever been a part of a team where the exact same line from year to year is back, and he thinks it should pay dividends.
And also, too, let's be honest, when you looked at the Saints offensive line in last preseason, we said, hey, Drew Brees is going to get killed. But they didn't have a lot of sacks. They did a good job, and he got rid of the football.
Well, it's time to switch gears now. We're going to go to a popular topic. Which NFL team has the best offense in the entire league? And for that, Damon Darrensburg is going to start us off. Damon.
Guys, I don't read the dictionary much, but I looked up the word offense in the dictionary, and one of the definitions is of offense is the art of attacking, attack or assault. The Saints assaulted in the NFL mostly through the air last year, but do they possess the best offense in the league? Personally, I have to go with the Indianapolis Colts. Over the last 4 years, the Colts have ranked at least in the top 3 in the league in total offense. And of his 9 years in the NFL, Peyton Manning has thrown for over 4,000 yards in 7 of them. The Saints put up gaudy numbers last year, but the Colts have been doing it for a long time. Adam, who do you like as top offense in the league?
I'll go with the Colts' longtime rival, the Patriots. Tom Brady is a top 3 quarterback who's won 3 Super Bowls, and the Patriots have an emerging star in tailback in Lawrence Maroney, now in his 2nd year, and Brady's receivers got a lot better this year. Of course, you have to start with the new acquisition from the Raiders, Randy Moss. Randy Moss is the best big play threat Brady has ever played with. The Patriots also added Dante Stallworth and Wes Welker on the wide receiving core. They have a veteran offensive line that will be very balanced and very explosive this season. Ed, your choice.
Well, you know me, I'm always a glass half full guy, and I'm going to say the New Orleans Saints are the best offense in the NFL. They were 163 yards, I believe, ahead of everyone else in total offense last year. I think Reggie Bush is ready for a giant year. One guy you can look at, too, tight end Eric Johnson, who could be a very big part of the Saints offense. And this is without no contribution from Robert Meacham. And if the Saints ever get anything out of him this year, with a solid offensive line and an outstanding quarterback, my friends, they're going to be loaded. And I think the only thing they really have to improve on is the red zone touchdown percentage. That could get a little bit better. Surprisingly, Drew Brees and his team not that great in the red zone last year, better with the long ball, which is exactly opposite of the way it was, it was explained to us that that's how it was going to be.
Watching Eric Johnson during training camp, you can tell that he really is a knack for catching the ball. He caught 82 passes when he was with the 49ers, and I think he possesses pass catching skills the Saints haven't seen maybe since Wesley Wallace. There's been a real lull at the tight end position for the Saints, and that could be an exciting facet this year.
And extremely effective down the middle against cover 2, which I think is something that a tight end can bring in that kind of offense.
Something else to watch for, too. Marcus Colston's been getting a lot of double coverage this year. It'd be interesting to see how Terrence Copper, Devery Henderson fill that void. Those guys are going to be in single coverage, and they're going to need to elevate their game as well.
Robert Meacham, he's the guy at some point. Got to step up.
We're going to be watching him. We're just getting started on the show here. Stick with us.
When he unexpectedly fell in the Saints' lap last year, Reggie Bush only gave Coach Sean Payton extra ammunition after an impressive rookie campaign. Can the president exceed the expectations placed on his second term? The NFC South boasts some of the most respected veteran and up-and-coming coaches in the league. We weigh in on which coach is best.
You're watching the Dodge Black and Gold season kickoff.
Welcome back to the show. You know, Saints fans who are also fantasy football players are frothing at the mouth over what Reggie Bush might be able to pull off this year.
Yeah, he had a pretty decent rookie season. I think he might even be better in his next season. What will Reggie do for a second act? With more on that, let's go to Robert O'Shields. Robert?
Well, Adam, Ed, August 1st, 2006, Jackson, Mississippi. Reggie Bush arrives on the campus of Millsaps College to begin his NFL career. A year later, Bush says he knows what to expect entering his second season.
I mean, I like to do it all. You know, our guy, 25, has the ability to be that guy.
I'm anxious to see how he does.
Reggie Bush is an international superstar. In 1 year, he's managed to flip his way into the spotlight, rubbing elbows with top athletes like David Beckham. But last year, it took Bush 5 games to score his first NFL touchdown against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So what's Reggie working on this year?
Trying to fine-tune, you know, those little things to help myself become a complete running back, and you know, fine-tuning my receiver skills in that position, and punt returning, and looking in a little bit of kick returning this year.
Even head coach Sean Payton noticed Bush developing later on in the 2006 season.
Did a good job north and south, especially in New York. I thought he had one of his better games. So I think it's important that we have that ability with not only him inside, but Deuce outside.
Last year, Bush had a little problem with the Mississippi Heat, but heading into camp this year, Bush was ready.
Knowing that coming into this camp, it helped me adjust to it a little bit easier this year.
Now, an interesting note about Reggie Bush's first touchdown against the Bucs. That was Bush's 100th touch of the season. I know Saints fans want Reggie to score 1 or 2 touchdowns when he reaches touch number 100 this season. And guys, another thing about that touchdown, it was on special teams, and his first rushing touchdown came a month later against Pittsburgh.
All right, we saw the graphic and we kind of gave it away a little bit. Best head coach in the NFC South. I know there's a wide array of picks. You can pick a lot of people. John Fox has done a great job, been to a Super Bowl. John Gruden has won a Super Bowl. Bobby Petrino probably wishing he was back at Louisville. He's got his hands full. My Lord, what a mess to go from a BCS championship win to the situation in Atlanta. So let's go back to Robert. Mr. O'Shields is going to start us off. Best head coach in the NFC South. Robert?
Well, guys, this is a no-brainer, and of course, Ed, you might want to call me a homer, but I'm going to go with the New Orleans Saints head coach Sean Payton. You know what? He kind of reminds me of my old ball coach. He's a coach's coach, you know, and a player coach, I should say. He's all about first class, even on and off the field. That is my pick of the coach of the year, and you know what? He could do it again, just like he did last year. Ed?
And I'm going to pick Sean Payton as well. What the Saints did last year was an incredible turnaround, but I'll tell you what impressed me more about Sean Payton than anything else. He made the right personnel decisions. And the team with the best players usually wins. So says the best coach of all time, John Wooden.
All right, my choice may be a little bit unusual. I'm going with the Bucs' John Gruden. The measure of a coach is how much you win, specifically how much he wins championships. And right now, Gruden is the only head coach in the division who's won a Super Bowl. He won it in his first year with Tampa. Some people may say that he did it with Tony Dungy's players, but the fact is, throughout the course of the year, no matter how good your personnel is, a head coach has to make a lot of strategic and motivational decisions. Gruden did it then, and right now, he's the only guy with the hardware in the division. Now, granted, Sean Payton's off to a great start, but in my mind, the sample size with him is relatively small, maybe too small. So for now, until Fox or Petrino or Payton wins a Super Bowl, Gruden right now, to me, best coach in the division.
And the thing about it, too, this year that's kind of ironic, a couple of Sean Payton's biggest friends are Gruden and Fox. And if the Saints beat those guys this year, he could put both of those guys out of jobs because I think they're on tight leashes.
They are. I mean, that last year was absolutely abysmal for the Bucs. They had quarterback problems. I think things will get progressively better for them if they do settle on a quarterback. Chris Sims looks like he's on the outside looking in, and that defense with the Bucs, which was so dominant for so many years, is getting old. They're starting to replace those older players with some new blood. I think that'll pay dividends for Tampa as well.
We're counting down to kickoff. Saints versus Bengals at the bottom of the hour, live here on CW 38. We are minutes away from kickoff and a chance to again scrutinize the Saints secondary.
Saints free safety Kevin Casevaharn had 6 interceptions last year for Cincinnati, most for a Bengal since 1989. But the Bengals left Casevaharn walk in free agency, walk to New Orleans. Last year, Casevaharn intercepted Drew.
The way they did, and we all kind of moved on since then. We're all trying to do the same thing, and that's go out there and win a championship. So there's no animosity on my part, and I don't think there's any on their part either.
Last year, Casevaharn intercepted Drew Brees in the end zone, snuffing out a Saints scoring chance. However, even with Casevaharn's big plays, the Bengals finished tied for last in the NFL in pass defense. But evidently, Ed, that play stuck with the Saints coaching staff. They wanted someone with his playmaking ability, and that's one of the reasons he's on the team this year.
You know, and I hear so many people around town criticize the Saints secondary. Well, they go to practice and they don't look good against this offense or this defense. There's no pass rush. You know, the offense is set up that way. Hello. When the offense is against the defense on 7-on-7, the offense usually wins.
I think also Casevaharn is his numbers scream that they needed to create more turnovers this year. Obviously, the Saints' pass defense wasn't terrible last year, but they just didn't have enough interceptions. And he's somebody who's just shown a nose for the ball, a la Sammy Knight. They really haven't had that kind of playmaker in the defensive secondary since Sammy left. And I think they were just looking for an extra edge. Not that it's a bad group in the back there, but they need guys who can have game-changing plays. They think Case Verharn's one of those guys.
And I think one of the things that's also interesting about the Saints secondary is this. Last year, a guy who was really overlooked, I think, is number 21, Jason Kraft. Had a very solid year, is in the right spot, I think, as your nickel or dime guy. And if Jason Kraft is in there in that role, and maybe Fred Thomas is your nickel back, then I think as a secondary, you're improved.
Job one tonight for the Saints as they take on the Bengals tonight, though, is stay healthy. Fain, Fujita, Brown, Henderson, Colston, all these guys are out with injuries. They say Colston doesn't have an injury. He has some soreness in his knee. But basically, these next 3 games, they really don't matter in terms of the first-line people. They need to get these guys healthy and ready for the Colts game, because if they begin the season without these guys, and we don't have any reason to believe that they won't, but they're a completely different team and a decimated team if they don't have these starters healthy.
Well, I think this is probably the last time you'll see the starters for any length of time on the field during the preseason. 5 preseason games. All right.
Too many.
Saints versus Bengals live and next on CW38. Enjoy the game.
I'll be back with highlights after the game on ABC 26 News at 10. Thank you for joining us. See you then.
The last word on sports. 4th down on 4.
Welcome into 4th down on 4. 3 preseason games down, 2 to go. The Saints getting their first win of the exhibition season last night in Cincinnati. And those that will get most of the playing time once the games start to count looked pretty good. Those that will most likely be used on a part-time basis, well, not so good. So whether you're a glass half empty or a glass half full type of person, either way, you had something to hang your hat on after last night.
And here's the gentleman we talked about, Rudy Johnson, knocked backwards and a loss on the play.
After being torched last season by the Bengals, it was good to see the Saints defense force a very quick 3-and-out last night on the first drive of the game, and more importantly, get the ball into the hands of their first team offense, which for the second straight week looked regular season ready. 10 plays, 69 yards, no third downs. Drew Brees was perfect, 6 for 6, 55 yards.
I'm getting excited. Obviously, I think this preseason serves a purpose. Last 2 times out, we've gone out and looked pretty sharp.
He's got a good feel for what we're doing. I thought he handled the opening drive real well and was real patient against the defense and did a good job of checking it down when he needed to and just moving the chains.
And unlike last week, the first team offense finished off this drive. Deuce McAllister slammed his way in from 8 yards to give the Saints a 7-0 lead.
We came out pretty sharp. I mean, that's one of the emphasis, just to come out and, if we can eliminate the mistakes and the penalties and the turnovers, then we're a dangerous team.
And they can be even more dangerous if the defense can tighten up, which at times against the potent Bengals they did last night. Mike McKenzie blanketed Tab Perry on this play, but there was a blown coverage shortly after. Sometimes, though, it's better to be lucky than good. The Saints caught a break when Carson Palmer's pass sailed into the end zone rather than to his wide receiver's hands. Since he would settle for a field goal, which was a theme in the first half, 131 yards of offense in the first 2 quarters led to just 4 field goals for the Bengals.
We could have easily just let them get in the end zone, but we didn't, and I think that's why we ended up winning.
To Carson Palmer, separated from the football.
For the first time in 5 games, the Saints defense also created a turnover. Charles Grant's sack led to Antoine Lake's recovery, and the Saints offense would quickly pounce on the short field. Reggie Bush's burst up the middle gave New Orleans a 17-3 lead.
I just know it's a big hole there. I know it's, a combination of the whole offensive line. I don't want to just single out one guy, because the whole offensive line provided that hole for me. And, it was an easy run for me, so I didn't have to do much.
And neither did the Saints kickoff team early on. The first 3 kicks from the foot of newly acquired Alinda Mare went well into the end zone. That gives the former All-Pro 4 touchbacks this preseason. The Saints had 8 all of last year.
You put a team on the 20, and that's a big plus. It's a big plus.
Mare's 4th kickoff landed short by design, or rather request, really.
I asked him if he could make it land on the -1, and he did. Started hitting, some 3-woods instead of drivers there, and that was on me.
But even with the win, Peyton was not all smiles. One drive in the second quarter that included a penalty and 2 fumbles was called a nightmare by the head coach. Payton wouldn't single out specific players, but made it very clear continued mistakes will not be tolerated. And with the first cuts only a week away, some players definitely need to get out of the doghouse.
The first measure in evaluating a player is, does he know what to do? And if he doesn't know what to do, I'm not going to play him. I'm not going to play him.
Joining us now to talk more about last night's game, Larry Holder from the Biloxi Times-Herald, Gus Cattengill from WWL Radio. And guys, we heard Sean Payton say he's not going to play guys that aren't doing the right things. Who do you think he's talking about there? He was pretty vague after the game, but there were plenty of guys that you could have just filled in the blank there. Gus?
Well, for starters, I think we got to go with the quarterback, Jamie Martin. Even though he is a veteran and he's played many years, even played last year with Sean Payton. But again, you get that feel, you get that sense when you watch it, the game unfold. It just doesn't feel comfortable this year. And what's odd is last season he had one of the best training camps of any player in Jackson. But this season he just doesn't look there. And talking to him in Jackson, he kind of brought up the fact that, you know, some days you just wake up and it's just not there anymore. And I talked to, you know, our own Bobby Hebert, and he said one morning you're going to wake up around his age and that arm just isn't as strong as it used to be, that you know where you want to go with the football, but it takes a little extra longer to get there. And I think you kind of seen that. There was a play where Reggie Bush kind of broke free and he threw it behind him. The feet aren't as quick as they used to. Maybe that arm and those, you know, the whole movement overall for him just isn't there right now.
Yeah, I think he's still a part of this team because I think Sean Payton likes the thinking man's part that he brings to the game. But who do you think he was?
I think he's probably referring to Antonio Pittman, just because on one of those plays he totally missed a block, and I mean Jamie Martin got crushed. And I mean, it's a younger guy, and he needs to learn what to do. And like you said, if he doesn't learn what to do, he's not going to play him. That very well could be him, or it could be Zach Strief, because he's still second-year guy, younger guy. And if he's missing blocks, getting penalties, I mean, both those two guys could probably be who he's talking about.
Yeah, Zach Strief, I think he's cemented in this team as well. But, you know, the game last year, he fills in well. We talked about this earlier. If Jamon Bushrod is that guy that's going to fill in behind Jamal Brown, because you've got to have competent guys back there, I think he'd be running with the two. So I think Zach Strief's safe. I think you're right. I think it's Antonio Pittman. They're expecting a lot out of this guy. They want him to be able to spell the running backs, and he missed a lot of tackles. And when he starts letting Drew Brees get hit, like he started letting Jamie Martin get hit, I think you're going to see maybe some moves made maybe sooner than later. But let's talk about that draft class, this draft class, 2007. Maybe Saints fans spoiled by 06, perhaps the best draft in the history of the franchise. Who out of this 07 draft is going to be the most productive, if any of them are going to be productive this year? Larry?
I'd have to say Usama Young, just because, I mean, he's a guy who might actually see the field. I don't know how much playing time Robert Meacham's going to get. Bushrod and Andy Alleman are all going to be backups. They wouldn't even start playing until maybe next year. But I would have to say Usama Young, because he's having a pretty good camp. Would you say that?
No question about it. Also, to bring up Usama, it's one of the guys that Sean Payton said has had a good camp, and he also made mention the fact that he's one of those guys that learning curve is not taking as long as certain other players, as you know it takes sometimes when you're a rookie. And you can see it every day at practice. He's always around the football. He's very physical, and we all know when you talk to him, the guy just loves football. He always has a smile on his face, and he's almost like a Roman Harper for last year. You know, where even though he's a rookie, he just seems to know where the ball is, and he doesn't have a problem being told, you know, certain little tidbits to get better. So I think of the draft class, I'd probably say Usama. And I still think Meacham, although he's not going to be the impact player over Colson, like you said, I think Saints fans got spoiled. That doesn't come around very often. I think Meacham eventually, towards maybe the last third of the season, you'll see him make some plays. But is he going to be a star in this team from this class? Not anytime soon, I think.
And let's remember that I think one of the reasons this draft class was so successful last year, his team wasn't very good last year. I mean, you had a lot of holes filled. You come off an 11-7 season, a trip to the NFC Championship game, not as many holes, not near as much pressure on this class to come in. So maybe they've got a chance to learn. Plus, you're picking 27th as opposed to 2nd. I think that has a lot to do with it as well, too. Right. Maybe the quality of players.
Right. I think they're maybe trying to take chances on some guys like Usama Young, like a Bushrod. I mean, these are guys, they're looking for the future. They don't need anything right away because, I mean, they're one step away from the Super Bowl. And, I mean, they're drafting so low, and you say, hey, Meacham's too good to pass up. We don't need a wide receiver, but he's too good to pass up, and we're just going to have to go out and take him.
First team offense sharp again, 2 games in a row. Any holes in this first team offense that you see, Gus?
Well, I tell you, I think the holes is like you talked about a little bit on one of the guys that needs to learn to go out there is left tackle right now. And the reason why I say that is even if Jamal Brown comes back, it's one of those situations where if he's not there, that's clearly a hole simply because you're losing a Pro Bowl player there. But as far as holes in receiving, from what we've seen at training camp, I think you have a pretty good, deep 4 or 5 receiving core there. They may not be spectacular, and they may not be on the cover of Madden football, but I think you saw
Which
with
is
Terrence,
a jinx, by the way,
exactly.
I think, isn't it, right?
Well, you saw Terrence Copper make some good catches. He did fumble the ball yesterday, but he's a guy that's picked up his game. We've all probably pretty much agree that Devery Henderson's had a good camp. We know they're solid at running back. Carney's solid at fullback. So you would probably say, you know, second string line would be your holes. Left tackle and center. We've seen a difference when Jeff Fain isn't playing. It's just not the same offense.
Yeah, I would just say the holes are injuries. I mean, you just got to stay healthy. I mean, there's, like Gus was talking about, the second team wide receivers, Terrence Copper and David Patton. I mean, even though they're solid, they're not superstars, but they're solid. And you could tell last night Drew can throw the ball to anybody, and then Deuce and Reggie can run the ball. You can use Mike Carney. So I think health, I mean, that's basically the only hole.
Does Devery's hamstring set him back? He had come so far. Does it set him back at all, not being able to get out on the field for what's going to look like 3 to 4 weeks now?
It possibly could, just because he's starting to gain confidence. And I mean, the last 3 years, it's been really erratic. I mean, he'd be hurt, he would be unproductive, he'd drop passes. So, I mean, it could possibly do that, but it seems like he's been able to overcome that and be a productive player now. So it's kind of, I mean, that's a wait and see kind of deal, I think.
One hole that could be on this team, we talked about holes on the first team offense. We know one's not Drew Brees, but could it be his backup? Gus brought this up. For the first time this preseason, the oldest player on the Saints offense got significant time in the preseason. But can Jamie Martin stay healthy, and can he lead this team if Drew Brees goes down? Juan Kincaid has the story.
It's been the great debate in training camp this year. If Drew Brees goes down, can Jamie Martin keep the ship afloat?
I made some good throws and made some good plays. Made a couple bad plays there in the first half that hurt. If I could take those back and make a different decision, I would.
That's been Martin's MO in camp. Highs and lows, but seemingly more of the latter. In his most significant playing time to date in the preseason, Martin showed flashes of what he can do if given the chance. And he continued to show us things he should not do no matter how much of a chance he's given, like the turnovers. He put the ball on the turf 3 times against Cincy.
One was definitely my fault, bad decision. Can't remember the third one, but you know, it's things that I can avoid if I make a little better decision on those plays. So it's on my shoulders.
You got smacked around pretty well out there, didn't you? Especially from the blind side.
Yep, took a couple shots, but that's part of it. That's part of it. It's kind of all part of getting into the swing of things and taking the hits and responding and staying in there and playing.
And those hard knocks serve as a reminder that Martin's time in the pocket can't be taken for granted, that he needs to make the right decisions quicker. Numbers-wise, he was solid, 14 of 19, 139 yards through the air. And he led the offense down the field for a pair of touchdowns, one of them an 11-play, 62-yard drive. Now his goal should be making sure that, if called upon to sub in for Brees, that the offense doesn't miss a beat.
I think we've improved definitely in every game in the preseason. You can see the improvement week to week, and I think we're there. You know, just finished up with these last 2 games, and you can see it in our #1 offense. You know, rolling down the field, and our defense is playing well. So we're about there.
I'm Juan Kincaid, 4th down on 4.
We're joined again by Larry Holder, Biloxi Sun-Herald, Gus Kattengill, WWL Radio. He took some big hits, but he showed that he's still tough. He's 37 years old. He has a hard time getting out of bed, much less when a 280-pound guy knocks him down. But how, in your opinion, has Jamie Martin looked this training camp? You know, you talked about it earlier. He looks a little slower this year.
It just looks like when he throws the ball, it doesn't have a lot of zip on the ball. He doesn't seem like he can ever really throw a spiral. And, I mean, he's throwing balls behind guys. I mean, sometimes he'll make good plays, and sometimes he won't. I mean, I guess that comes with him. He is the backup quarterback. But it almost seems like when he's in the pocket, he doesn't really feel the pressure. Like a couple of times, one time he said it was his fault, and then another time was a little iffy. Like he just doesn't feel the pressure, and if he can't get the ball out, I mean, this offense isn't going to move anywhere.
And it's tough, though, when you're not getting this is a very repetition-oriented offense, and he's not getting the one. Remember Drew Brees the first couple of games last year back when he was off the pitch count. Right. I mean, he had a hard time with this offense too.
Right, no question. And I think that's part of the reason. Is he getting enough work in at practice? Is he getting it in? But again, like Larry said, you tend to look at certain things that repetition, I guess, shouldn't matter. I mean, like you mentioned his age, and you mentioned, I mean, how old he's been in the league. And I don't mean that in a negative way, but you want that venerable backup in case your starter goes down. And that's just kind of one of those things. He talked about holes earlier. And when we say second string offense, we're including him simply because it's completely different. You know, you got a high-octane sports car when Drew Brees is in there, just crisp, the passes are coming, the offense is moving, and when Jamie's in there, maybe you're going to have to run the football a little more. Right. And you kind of saw that when Jamie got in there last night, that they ran the ball a little more rather than trying to get those passes out because the zip isn't there.
Is he firmly the number 2, and who is the number 3? If not, he is the number 2.
I'm going to say he is firmly the number 2. Simply because Tyler Palko, I would say he's number 3, but I mean, he doesn't have the experience. I mean, if you put Jamie Martin out there for a whole game and has to play multiple games with the first-team offense, I mean, I think he'll get his feet under him and play well. But I mean, this will probably be the last year you'll see Jamie Martin. It's the last year of his contract, so that's why I think Tyler Palko makes the team. And, I mean, he'll develop as a third-string quarterback and become the backup next year.
Gus, real quick, Baker, Palko, 5, number 3.
Palko. No question about it.
I think Palko, number 3 as well. Sit tight, guys. We're going to have more with Larry Holder and Gus Kattengill when we come back. We'll get more of their thoughts on the Saints, including what kind of year will Reggie Bush have and who may be the odd man out at the receiver position. More 4th Down right around the corner. Welcome back to 4th Down. For Lance Moore, being involved not just on special teams, but in the Saints offense, has helped cement his place on the Saints' 53-man roster. Juan Kincaid with more.
In this preseason, Moore has been good.
I'm just having fun, you know, and whenever the ball's in the air, I want it.
And no wide receiver on the Saints roster has wanted it more than Lance Moore. In 3 games, 13 catches, 131 yards, both team leading. And it hasn't mattered which backup QB's in, Moore quickly becomes their favorite target.
Sometimes you go out there and you see what the look is, and you know right away that the ball is going to you. And, you know, as long as everything in the back end goes well, you know, the ball should come out, and I'll be there waiting.
Maybe it's been the venues this Ohio natives played in, against Pittsburgh and Canton, the Bengals, and Cincy.
And that's great. You know, my parents get to come and watch me play, and it's just an awesome feeling. You know, being in New Orleans, they don't get to come down very often and, you know, come see me play, and to be able to come here and let them come, and man, it's just a great feeling, and I'm happy that they could be here.
And they've seen what we've all seen, Moore producing whenever he touches the ball, which at times seems like all the time. From special teams to the receiving team, Moore has done it all, and Sean Payton's taken notice.
He did some good things. I think he's competitive. He's a guy that plays physical. He's a willing blocker, which I like, and he's smart. So he usually does what he's supposed to do. He's worked hard at putting himself in this position, so he's doing a good job. He's doing a good job.
Coach Payton complimented you in his press conference in a number of ways, but one of the things he said was about your intelligence, that you don't make the same mistake twice.
I mean, you can't. You know, especially as a guy that's not one of the, you know, the big guys on the team. You know, you can't. You got to be mentally sharp, and you got to be able to know what you're doing and go out there and execute each and every time.
And because he's remained focused on the task at hand, Moore, perhaps more so than any other backup, is a lock to make this team and his childhood dream come true.
To come from, you know, Toledo to be, you know, playing in the NFL now, I mean, it's an awesome feeling. You know, it's a dream come true, and you know, now I'm starting to, you know, really feel like I belong.
I'm Juan Kincaid, 4th Down on 4.
Larry Holder from the Biloxi Sun-Herald, Gus Kattengill, WWL, still joining us. Guys, we saw Lance Moore. He's probably going to get most of the returns. What's the scenario when we first see Reggie Bush back there fielding a punt?
Oh, game 1, punt 1. I think they're going to need an explosion
that early,
against the Colts. I mean, you're going to have to outscore those guys, and you're going to need a weapon right away. And, hey, you might not even field a punt in a Colts game because they might be scoring every time. But I say Reggie Bush, first punt of the season he takes.
We see him back there.
And also, you might even get to see him with some kickoff return. He mentioned about it. Sean Payton mentioned about it, and he said that if the scenario is worth it and they need a big play, you're going to see him as a kick returner.
I don't know. I think we see maybe a little bit further. That would be great drama, but I think that first time, I think we're going to see Lance Moore. I could definitely be wrong. Larry Holder, Gus Kattengill, without a doubt, probably one of the more younger-looking panels that we've had out here. If we go out for drinks, let's be sure.
Sharper dress.
Yeah, sharper dress, definitely for a print guy. Let's be sure everyone has their ID if we go out for drinks afterwards. Thanks again for your time. We appreciated it. More to come on this edition of 4th Down on 4, including a look at how the Green Wave fared.
This is the last word on sports. 4th Down on 4.
Game 4 of 5 this preseason for the Saints in a little less than an hour. Welcome into our special pregame edition of 4th Down on 4. Two teams tonight looking for two completely different things. The Saints starters getting their last extended playing time of this preseason. The Chiefs, however, still in search of their starting quarterback. With a preview from Arrowhead Stadium is Jim Henderson.
Scott, the greatest difficulty in handicapping preseason games is to place them in context. What does this one game mean to the whole? But of all of them, the second to last has the most definition. This is the game when the starters will see the most action as a unit. Sean Payton intends to play them through the first half and then probably a series in the third quarter to reacquaint them with warming up again after the break and refocusing their minds and bodies. And while you would like to see proficiency, it might be more important for this Saints team to come out of tonight's game without new or recurring injuries. A year ago, you worried that a team with a lot of new pieces never put it together in a 1-3 preseason. A preseason that ended right here in Arrowhead Stadium in a lackluster 10-9 loss. Based on what that team proved during the regular season and what it has shown this preseason, those worries have been largely abated. What you do worry about are Scott Fujita and Jeff Fain aggravating earlier injuries tonight as they return to combat. You worry about any new injuries of consequence to current starters, and you worry that the recuperation of starters Marcus Colston, Jamal Brown, and Devery Henderson won't return them to full health before the season opener 2 weeks from tonight. Vince Lombardi once said, "Winning isn't everything, it's the only thing." For this New Orleans Saints team, winning tonight means almost nothing. It's coming out of this game in good health that means almost everything. Scott?
Jim Henderson reporting from Kansas City. This is the first of 3 straight Thursday night games for the Saints, culminating, of course, in that very highly anticipated season opener on national TV against the Colts. With more on what to expect from tonight's game, we welcome in our own Juan Kincaid with more. Juan?
Hi there, Scott. You know, in the preseason, there's really only one game worth watching, and it's the one where the starters see the majority of playing time. Tonight is that game. Against the Chiefs, you can expect to see the starting 11 getting the majority of snaps. Tonight, Sean Payton's game plan is simplified a bit. More Drew Brees, more Reggie Bush. More of the starters, period.
I don't know that it's 3 full quarters. You know, we'll probably get through the half, and then with some of these guys, make some substitutions with others, continue to begin with the third quarter, maybe 1 series, and then make the rotations.
And perhaps more of the run from the first team as well, meaning Deuce McAllister can expect more than the 3 touches he's averaged per preseason game.
Just go out there and execute. You know, we want to be able to establish some timing and rhythm, and, you know, just go out there and do our jobs. You know, try to eliminate some of the mistakes we made that previous week.
So what to look for now? In Sean Payton's eyes, the starting 11 on offense have gotten better as the preseason has gotten longer. That's called a plan coming together.
You hope to pick up, you know, since you've been in offense, you hope that you can just start and pick up, you know, where you left off, but it necessarily doesn't work that way, you know, but we've been putting time in as far as, you know, just in the meeting rooms and out on the practice field, and it's kind of shown up the last 2 games for us. Now, the question is, can we go out and sustain it, you know, on a long-term basis?
Speaking of long-term, the hope is the way the offense is playing now carries over to the September 6th opener at Indianapolis. With Camp Jackson now behind them, it's hard not to look past the team's final preseason game against Miami, the season opener against the Colts.
I think there's always that anticipation at the start of the regular season, and as that draws near, that anticipation grows, and you know that it's, you know, almost 2 weeks away.
It'll probably be after that Miami, you know, game that you'll get, you know, that little burst and, you know it's right around the corner. I mean, but, you know, you'll start to get the itch, though.
We'll hear more from Juan Kincaid later in the show. We turn now to the injury front. Center Jeff Fain will be on the field for the first time since the Hall of Fame game tonight. His thoughts from earlier this week. Jeff Fain planning to get some snaps tonight against Kansas City. Tough being out any amount of time, even if it is a preseason. Huh?
For sure. You know, it's tough to see these guys go out there and play ball, and you know, I just miss being out there, with my teammates, and just happy to get back out there.
How's everything feeling?
It's coming along. It's coming along. It's not 100% yet, but I definitely wanted to see if I can get some work in and you know, just get back out there and get moving around a little bit.
How did you feel the offense looked last game?
I thought that first drive was really good, and I thought that we clicked pretty well. You know, once Jamie got in there as well. You know, a couple of mishaps, but other than that, I mean, I think that you know, offensively we looked pretty well.
Almost mid-season form, would you say that, especially the last two games, outside of not being able to punch it in 2 games ago, still looked like everything was clicking?
Yeah, it's definitely you know, much improvement since Pittsburgh. I mean, I think that we can say that. You know, I think there's still some things that we need to iron out, and as we keep playing together, you know, this season keep growing, I think it'll just get better and better.
It's an age-old question, but 5 preseason games, that's an exception. It's usually 4, but still, how do you feel about the amount of preseason games in the league?
You know, I mean, I think that I think they're good for it serves its purpose in some rights. I mean, I think it's good for the younger players. I think it's good for guys just getting together, especially in our case last year. You know, we got a lot of the kinks out last year, and then we were able to, you know, kind of get rolling during the regular season. But I think it serves its purpose on some ends, and on some ends, you know, I think that it's a little overboard.
In another week, I believe you guys will start kind of putting in the game plan for that first game. How much does that change? How much does it start helping players out, putting in stuff specifically for a game as opposed to just coming out and doing the same stuff day in and day out?
Oh, it's huge. It's huge. It's you know, just from the being interested in it. I mean, just the interest peak. You know, something you know you're going to be able to play against somebody else, and you know you're actually preparing for a team, and you know there's real bullets now. You know, and the stakes are risen, and it's going to be exciting. It's definitely going to be exciting to get the regular season going.
Back here in Metairie, getting to use an indoor practice facility. How big is that?
Huge. You know, it's really hard to really explain, you know, how big of a toll that heat takes on your body. But you know, it's huge to be back, and I'm happy to be back, especially in New Orleans, sleep in my own bed. Beyond just getting in the indoor field, it's a huge advantage.
Fain, a very big example of just how well things went for the Saints last season. In his first 3 years in the league, Jeff Fain never played in more than 14 games. He started every game for the Saints last season. Staying healthy will be perhaps the most important thing for the Saints this season. If everything goes right, we asked you, how far can the Saints go this year? And 56% of you say the Saints will not only get to the Super Bowl, they're going to win the whole thing. Not everyone, though, is drinking the Kool-Aid. One viewer comments, I'm sorry to say that they had their chance last year and couldn't close the deal. I watched several preseason games and see very little potential. His words, not mine. I sure hope they prove me wrong. Another viewer says, this is the year that our boys in black and gold go all the way. They would have done it last year if the NFC Championship game would have been played in the Dome. One keeps it very short and very sweet. Super Bowl, here we come. You're watching 4th Down. There's more to come on this special edition of 4th Down on 4, including a look at the special teams. With Alindo Mare on board, how much improvement can the Saints expect, especially in kickoff coverage? Plus, in case you didn't notice, there's a battle to see who will be the team's punter. We'll get a closer look at who has the edge heading into tonight's game. Welcome back. Sean Payton made it very clear everyone either gets better this season or they get replaced. So that's why a year after he averaged almost 44 yards a punt as a rookie, Steve Weatherford is in the most contested battle of training camp with fellow punter Chris Hansen. No two players on the Saints roster spend more time at practice together than punters Steve Weatherford and Chris Hansen. They might even have a better bond than a quarterback and center, and that's saying a lot. But the two punters know they are battling for one spot, and it's a battle Sean Payton says is pretty even at this point.
Those guys are battling. It's been a good competition. It's been healthy. I think they both responded well. So we'll see how that shapes up.
We're just going out there and trying to make each other better. And I think in the long run, we're both going to be playing somewhere this year. So, you know, as far as, you know, wanting him to do well, I want him to do great. You know, I mean, I want to do great also. So, no, I mean, it's been a good competition. I've learned from him. He's learned from me.
Basically, we're coming out each day and writing our resumes for other teams or this team. And every kick's we have to treat every kick like our last kick. And I think we're both hitting the ball well. We're both pushing each other pretty hard. And I look forward to seeing what's going to happen. You know, Steve's going to have a great year this year, and I'm going to have a great year this year. So it's just a matter of where.
Hansen is a 7-year NFL veteran, went to the Pro Bowl back in 2002. Weatherford is in his second NFL season after taking over the punting duties from longtime Saint Mitch Berger last year.
With Chris here, you know, it's been a lot better. You know, if he's hitting good balls and my leg's a little tired, you know, I got to strap it up and go out there and try to do as good as I can do.
So in a race so close, it could come down to the intangibles, like how Weatherford's high school track career helped him out on this play against the Eagles in last year's playoffs.
They're going to have to let me know next time they want me to do that, because I had to check my pants after that one.
Hansen doesn't hold any track records, but he does share a name with the host of a controversial show that exposes online predators.
My wife looks at it online. She tries to find stories and stuff, and that's all that pops up. So it's kind of ironic. So
it'd be nice to have something else pop up when you Google Chris Hansen.
Yeah. But it'd be nice to be that well known too.
The next time Hansen, or Weatherford for that matter, make the news will probably be around September 1st, when the Saints roster has to be trimmed to 53 players. And Sean Payton has said this could be one of the final cuts he makes. Right alongside Weatherford and Hansen, each practice, it seems, is place kicker Olindo Mare. He was picked up in an offseason trade with Miami for a 6th-round pick and has shown Sean Payton enough thus far to be the only kicker in camp. Here with kicker Olindo Mare, 3 touchbacks, 4 already in the preseason. The Saints had 8 all of last year. You know that was one of the big reasons you were brought in, and it seems like that it's paid off so far.
Well, we'll find out. I know that we're going to be kicking a lot more kickoffs and extra points than we did in the past, so it's not, you can't save it, but you know, I go for it every time, and to make an opposing offense go 80 yards every time, you know, statistics show that it's a little bit harder to do. So I'm sure the defensive staff enjoys the touchbacks, and you know, we'll try. And if we don't get it in there, we got some pretty good guys to cover. So
Sean said he told you to back off that 4th kick. He said he wanted you to bring your 3-wood out. Is that something? Can you place it pretty good like that? Or you got that much touch?
You know, the last 2 we wanted to get some returns to show kind of, you know, who's going to cover and work some guys out, I guess. And yeah, so I had to hit those 2 short, and I think actually one I kind of messed up on because I went a little bit slower, and I think I got a couple guys offside. So I don't know. Hopefully the penalty's not on me, but you know, just to see some guys cover. You know, we had a little bit of a crosswind, and you know, I don't really try to get too technical. You know, just back up and swing as hard as you can. You know, if you need to put them in the corners, obviously when it's windy, then you have to do that. And we've done that, you know, for the last couple of years, playing in windy places, so it won't be a problem. But 11 games indoors, that helps. There'll hopefully be a lot of touchbacks. Yeah.
Onside kicks, how would you rate yourself as an onside kicker?
I mean, I think I'm pretty good, but we didn't do, you know, you're only as good as your stats, and we didn't really do that many the last couple of years. So, but now that we're on the turf and, you know, the ball will jump a little bit higher, we get a couple more guys to figure that thing out. We'll see what's going on. So hopefully we'll be the best, you know, guys and on that onside kick. But I tell you what, I don't want to be doing that many. You know, I don't want to be behind. So
field goals, where's your best range, you feel? I mean, obviously you've got the leg for those long ones.
I'm pretty good inside of 20 yards, you know. I mean, I don't know. You know, we went indoors, and I don't know. We'll see.
Do you have a record in that leg?
Yeah. Like I said with the onside, I hope we don't kick that many long ones. We had enough last year, but you know, I think once I can get in rhythm with the you know, holder and snapper, I think, you know, we can get comfortable from any range. And you know, need it be if we need a long one, then I mean, I'm sure that's one reason why I was here too.
Olindo Mare looking for his 5th touchback of the preseason tonight against the Chiefs. Cut day is Tuesday, so which players are in danger of not making the roster? We'll talk to two guys who may be on that list. Plus, we'll see who you think could be looking for a new line of work. Stay with us. Fourth Down returns after the break.
One thing we've learned since Sean Payton came on board as head coach a year ago, the more you know, the longer you stay. When the Saints drafted Antonio Pittman this season, the writing appeared to be on the wall for Aaron Stecker. But because Stecker's a guy that prides himself on being able to do it all, he's not planning on giving up his job without a fight. All right, here with Aaron Stecker. 3 games now in the preseason. What's been the most impressive thing about this football team that you've seen so far?
I just think that we just continue to get better, and especially, the first group when they're out there, when they have a chance, it's very limited. But from, the first game they're out there, really couldn't do anything to, the next game doing a little bit more on their first drive, and then, the last game just, seemed like everything worked. The runs, the passes. We scored a touchdown. Deuce had one, Reggie had one. So it's been impressive how we, as far as offensively, have, picked it up, and the defense has gotten better too.
It seems like over the 3 games, your workload has kind of increased as well. I'd imagine that's the reason why it's one way that Payton can kind of get more of a look at you. And I mean, he knows what you bring to the table, but it's an opportunity for you to try to win that spot back again.
Well, it's the same anytime. I mean, if you're the 3rd, 4th guy, you're gonna get most of the work. I mean, because the 1s and the 2s are only going to go out there. In the case of Reggie and Deuce, they're both 1s, so they're going to go out there and get their touches. So it's nothing new. I mean, from the beginning of when I've been in since a rookie, I've gotten most of my work after the first guys go in there. So it's nothing new. I mean, last year I would have got a lot of work too, but I was injured, and Javon Branch got an opportunity to go out there and got a lot of work. So it's a situation where I've always been in that situation, and like I've said before, time and time again, I've always looked at myself as being on a bubble, so nothing surprises me.
Is it an advantage or a disadvantage for you with them knowing about you so much already, having seen you for a couple of years now?
I think it's an advantage, especially if when you're trying to win games. Sometimes coaches look at veteran players, guys who've been through it. I've been in playoff games, I've been in the Super Bowl. I've played running back. When Deuce got hurt, I stepped in. And I had a good game, and I can catch the ball. So I mean, the more you can do, the more valuable you are. And so I just go out there and continue to do things that I do. And if I can help this team win, they'll keep me around. If not, there's other teams out there that I know I can help.
The 4th game is usually reserved majority for the players that start. But as we get into the 4th game, is it maybe your most important game?
No, I think anytime you go out there is important. So I don't take one game more important than the other one. It's just whenever you get a chance to go out there, you got to show your stuff. That's your resume, and so I don't put any pressure on myself. Like I said, I mean, if I'm here, I'm very happy. If I'm not, I know that I'll be somewhere because I can do a lot of things.
Does it ever come a time in your career you think where you won't be auditioning?
No, I don't think so. I came when I first got into the league. I was an undrafted free agent, so right there you have a knock on not being drafted. And sometimes when a guy's drafted, he's gonna get more look, and because they spent money on the guy, and they're gonna give him an opportunity to get on the field. So I mean, it's just you just gotta keep going, and that's what I love about the game. You gotta keep competing, and I have that fire. And the day I don't have that fire and I don't want to compete anymore, then that'll be a day that I'll step away.
And talk about needing to make a good lasting impression. Jamal Jones needs game reps. The worst place to be is on the bike during training camp, and that's exactly where Jones spent the majority of his time while in Jackson. He's not expected to play tonight in KC, and that's bad news for Jones's future with the Saints. Here with Jamal Jones, and it's a good thing to get you back on the field finally, because so much time spent on the bike in training camp. To get back out and get some work in a preseason game, talk about that.
Oh, it's definitely a good feeling to get back. Had a couple days of practice, and felt good getting back in my first game. Still, a little bit, I guess, rusty. I got some things I got to work on. Coming back. Missing a lot of camp. But it felt good to be back out there.
It's a lot of catch-up for you now, isn't it?
Yeah, well, the game kind of, the couple of practices going to work me back into shape. That's a natural thing that's going to happen. But, just, little things that, you work on day in and day out in camp. I missed a lot of that, so I just got to, get some extra time and, make sure I'm concentrating on the things that I missed.
A lot of guys they may have given up on by now because so little time on the practice film. But how much do you think it's an advantage to you that they know what you bring to the table based on last year?
Well, I definitely think being that I'm not a rookie and that I have,
some experience and I've shown some things in the past that is to my advantage. But still, it's a different year, it's a different team, and you always got to prove yourself every day, every game.
Games 4 and 5, the importance for you, vital and important?
Well, I look at every game as being important, but, you know, I take it one at a time. So this Kansas City game, I'm just getting ready for, and I'm going to do, you know, go out there and play the best I can, try to prepare myself this week, and just give it, you know, all I got. Do you think you're fighting for a roster spot right now because of the injuries that have set you back so far? Yes, I do. I mean, really, it's, you know, I can't tell you what the coaches are looking for, what kind of, you know, what they have planned or whatever. So it's hard to say what the team is going to be in the end. You don't know until the end. But all I can do is go out there and play hard.
All right, Jamal, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, you heard Jones say it. He thought he was battling for a spot, and most of you think he won't win. Running back Pierre Thomas getting 38% of the votes on our poll question of the one bubble player who will make the Saints' final 53-man roster. Stick around. We wrap up this special edition of 4th Down on 4 when we return. Down will still air in its regular time slot on Channel 4 this Sunday. More on the Saints and Chiefs, plus what to expect from the NFC South this season. Pro Football Weekly's Chris Neubauer will join us, plus a preview of what could be the most anticipated season for LSU football ever. And with the 2-year anniversary of Hurricane Katrina on the 29th, we'll look back at a season that changed an entire program. That's this Sunday after Night Watch on Channel 4. And then next week, we'll do it again right here on WUPL. Another Saints pregame special edition of 4th Down will also be in Starkville that night for a preview of LSU's season opener with Mississippi State. It all begins a week from today at 6:30. Be sure you mark it down. Thanks for watching tonight. Kickoff between the Saints and Chiefs in about 30 minutes. Join us tomorrow 5, 6, 9, and 10 for locker room interviews and much more. For Juan and Jim and everyone else that makes this show work, take care and God bless.
Saints kick off the most anticipated regular season in Saints history, but the Saints still have some fine-tuning to do. Tonight, the Saints point to Arrowhead Stadium in Kansas City to take on the Chiefs. Saints football is around the corner, but first, CW38 presents the Dodge Black and Gold season kickoff. Next. CW38 presents the Dodge Black and Gold season kickoff.
Well, if you want to see the Saints starters in the preseason, make sure you watch tonight.
Saints first stringers expected to play about the first half tonight, maybe a little bit more, in the 9th ever preseason meeting between the Saints and the Chiefs. 2 weeks from tonight, the Saints open the regular season against the defending Super Bowl champion Indianapolis Colts. Until then, the goal is continued improvement, avoid injuries, and sort out a handful of roster spots. The entire Saints nation is looking forward to September 6th. But Sean Payton is not interested in looking beyond tonight's game against the Chiefs.
I think there's always that anticipation of the start of the regular season, and as that draws near, that anticipation grows, and you know that it's, you know, almost 2 weeks away. So that being said, though, there's still quite a bit of competition for some of these roster spots.
As we mentioned, the Saints starters will probably go at least a half, but Drew Brees expected to go more like a quarter, perhaps less. Drew Brees so far 18 for 20 in passing during the preseason.
You got to do better than that.
Sure.
Just kidding. Drew Brees was the starter for the NFC in the Pro Bowl. He gave ample evidence why on the Saints' first drive against the Bengals. That is part of tonight's breakdown. The Saints' opening drive against Cincinnati was engineered by a quarterback with a perfect understanding of the offense. The Bengals blitzed from the left side. The perfect call, a screen to the same side for Reggie Bush, gain of 12. Later, a quick toss on first down to David Patton for 6 yards. Then, in a power formation, tight end and two backs, Drew Brees sees 8 in the box and quickly fires the slant to Terrence Copper against man coverage. With the Bengals totally off balance, the Saints then played power football. Number 73, Jari Evans, and number 44, Mike Carney, spring Deuce McAllister for 8 yards and a touchdown. A weakness for Saints quarterback Jamie Martin was holding on to the ball too long. Here Martin has 3 seconds to unload the football. That's plenty of time. And he doesn't seem to feel pressure very well. Result, sack and fumble. But when given time, Martin can still make starting quarterback throws. Here he throws the ball low to Lance Moore. This was a perfect throw, away from the defender and in front of 2 safeties who could have rung Lance Moore's bell. Maybe it's just coincidence, but the last 4 years, the Saints played 5 preseason games. They never had a winning regular season. 1983, the Saints played in Canton and finished 8-8. 1990, the Saints traveled to London for an extra preseason game and finished 8-8. 3 years later, the Saints traveled to Tokyo and finished 8-8. And the last time the Saints played in Canton, 1996. Jim Mora resigned at midseason. The Saints finished 3-13. In 2006 and 2000, the Saints' last 2 playoffs trips, the team had a losing record in the preseason, which shows you just how much preseason really means. And I know the coach doesn't want to say it, but just kind of being around the players, you can tell that they're really ready to get on with it.
Absolutely. And the injuries, they're not major injuries, let's say, but the injuries are mounting. There's a whole bunch of first stringers who won't be playing tonight, and a new one is Mark Simoneau, starting middle linebacker. He's resting a sore knee, and Brian Simmons is going to get a chance to shine. So I think you make a good point about that. The preseason is so long. These guys want to get the evaluations done, develop some cohesiveness, but oftentimes they don't want that to extend beyond 3 games.
And the question to really ask, I think, is how many of these guys would be playing if it was a regular season game tonight? And I think the list wouldn't be nearly as long.
I think the list against the Miami Dolphins will be even a lot longer, too. We're just getting warmed up here on the pregame show. Stay with us.
After a successful homecoming in '06, can the Saints remain financially viable in New Orleans long term? Paul Murphy gets answers.
Ian, no team has ever repeated as NFC South champ. Tonight we scour through the South to find out who might be the Saints' toughest divisional test.
You're watching the Dodge Black and Gold season kickoff. There's
Blanco and Saints owner Tom Benson agreed to drop the exit clauses in the team's current contract with the state.
The team is staying put through 2010, but how long after that? Paul Murphy joins us more with negotiations on a possible new contract. Paul, are there any?
Well, unfortunately, guys, negotiations on that new contract right now are at a standstill, but there is some good news. State leaders say if Mr. Benson was holding out for a new stadium, he has one in the form of a rebuilt and renovated Superdome, courtesy of Hurricane Katrina. Success on the field last season led to détente between Saints owner Tom Benson and state negotiators. In the offseason, both sides agreed to toss out contract clauses that would have allowed the NFL franchise to leave Louisiana within the next 4 years. Governor Kathleen Blanco wants to lock the team into a new long-term deal, possibly through 2025. Her point man on the Saints, Superdome Commission Chairman Tim Coulon, admits he hasn't spoken to the Saints since March, and there are no meetings scheduled through the end of this football season.
Ideally, I would love to have this going beyond 2010 at this point, but I don't think it's a real negative.
The current contract calls for the state to make annual inducement payments to the Saints. Last month, taxpayers paid the team $20 million in cash, plus about another $8.5 million in game day revenue and other credits. The state subsidy jumps to $23 million a year for the next 3 years. In an ideal world, what would a new Saints contract look like from the state standpoint? In an ideal world?
I'm not sure that it would look much different than we have. Obviously, we have inducements that are unique to this franchise. Again, we're a small market.
Mr. Benson says he is committed to getting a new long-term deal done before his current contract expires in 2010.
politically, you know, it's always a lot slower process than you'd like.
In the past, the Saints have lobbied hard for a new stadium. Superdome managers say all of the renovations to the team's current home after Katrina ripped off the roof should extend the lifespan of the building.
When it's all said and done, we will have spent about $210 million over a 3-year period. So essentially, you're going to wind up with new interior finishes, new electronic equipment, new seating, new concession areas, and a new exterior skin. So all the components of a new facility.
State leaders say building a new stadium in the foreseeable future in New Orleans may be off the table. The state and city are now grappling with other major needs in the wake of Hurricane Katrina. But guys, I'm told that a new stadium may be doable, may be possible by the end of this next contract extension.
All right, so what happens here? We have a I don't think anything's going to happen until we have a new governor, correct?
A new governor and the end of football. As you know, traditionally the Saints don't come to the negotiation table during football season. They want to concentrate on the field, and then they come back after the season and resume their talks with the state.
And I think, as we discussed, so much money has been sunk into the Superdome, as Doug Thornton mentioned, over the past 3 years. The whole notion of a new stadium, I think, is so far off the radar because the building has been upgraded in so many ways, but additionally, there are so many other needs in this city, and so much money has been sunk into it. I don't think that's something that would be entertained for, at the earliest, maybe 15, maybe 20 years from now.
What we've seen in the past when the states negotiated with the Saints is that they tried to build a timetable into the contract. Say maybe 10 years into the new contract, you look at where the financing would be for a new stadium. Maybe a little beyond that, you start the engineering. So at some point, the Saints are going to get a new stadium. But in the reality, it's not going to be anytime soon.
But I think just kind of reading the tea leaves and talking to a lot of people, that $23.5 million a year in inducements at the end of this contract wouldn't surprise me if it went to 30 or 35 a year. Because if a new stadium is not on the horizon, then the inducement package is going to stay. Agree?
Agreed, but you have to look at the improvements that have been made to the Superdome, to the club suites. The Superdome is going to get a new exterior skin. The club suites are going to have windows to the city with private escalators. So Tom Benson is going to have the opportunity to make that non-shared revenue that he so covets that the other owners are making. So maybe the Superdome isn't such a bad place after all.
And it's still in the best location in the city.
No doubt about it. We love the Superdome. We've always been a big Superdome fan.
Thanks, Paul.
Sure.
Thanks, Paul. Appreciate it. Great job. Well, with one major exception, it has been an eventful preseason for the teams in the NFC South.
Compared to their division foes, the Saints have had a downright dull couple of weeks, which is precisely the way Sean Payton wants it. To get us up to speed on headlines around the NFC South, let's go to Damon Darrensburg. Damon?
That's right, guys. Last season, the Saints surprised the football world by winning their first division title since the NFC West became the realigned NFC South back in 2002. And the team is expected to repeat as division winners this year. However, a recent string of events has changed the face of the NFC South, meaning based on these facts, the division may be easier to predict.
The Atlanta Falcons weren't expected to challenge the Saints for the NFC South title, and after Monday's course of events, those expectations are even lower. Michael Vick agreed to plead guilty to federal dogfighting charges, all but ending his football career and handing the keys of Bobby Petrino's pass-happy offense to journeyman quarterback Joey Harrington. Forget Michael Vick for a second, because the Falcons have to do it for an entire season. Viewed as the only potential challenge to the Saints in NFC South, this week the Carolina media said Jake Delhomme needs a rear-view mirror attached to his helmet because free agent signee David Carr is closing the gap. In Friday's 27-10 loss to the Eagles, Delhomme failed to complete 7 of his first 10 passes, was sacked 3 times, lost a fumble, and threw an interception that was returned for a touchdown. While David Carr is certainly a viable quarterback, this is Delhomme's team to lose. If Delhomme comes out and play and continues delivering good decisions, there will be no controversy. The Bucs have been really bad since they won the Super Bowl back in 2002, and according to this week's Tampa Tribune, a playoff season in 2007 may not be enough to save John Gruden's job. The roster is getting older, and with Jeff Garcia and David Boston serving as band-aids at key positions, the Bucs have little to be optimistic about in 2007.
Guys, definitely a lot going on this week in NFC South. Now, apart from the Michael Vick saga and minus the Saints, it's been a turbulent training camp for the entire NFC South. Carolina has the offensive issues surrounding Jake Delhomme's performance, and the Tampa fans are becoming really disappointed with the performance of former LSU Tiger Michael Clayton. Also, patience is starting to wear thin with former Auburn Tiger Cadillac Williams. Back to you.
I think both of the problems on those football teams are bad offensive lines in Tampa and Carolina, which is not a good thing when you come up against Will Smith and Charles Grant. Well, if the Saints are going to return to the NFC Championship game this season, they'll have to travel a more difficult road to get there.
Last year, the Saints had a fourth-place schedule, but after winning the NFC South, they have a first-place schedule this season, which begs the question, what is the toughest place the Saints will play all year? Let's go back to Damon. He'll start us off.
Guys, the Saints' away schedule this year is a doozy. This year, Seattle, Chicago, and Indy are some of the toughest places to play in the league. And with that said, I think Indianapolis will be the toughest place for the black and gold to lace them up this year. Now, I've been to Colts games before, and while the city of Indianapolis doesn't jump off like, say, New York, the fans take their Colts very seriously. It's a dome, so it gets crazy loud. The Colts are reigning world champs, so that means on Thursday, September 6th, Indy will drop that championship banner on the Saints, and that has to be a hard thing to watch for the visiting team. Adam?
As the Saints learned last year in the NFC Championship game, Soldier Field is a nasty place to play in the winter, and I think the December 30th date with the Bears will represent the biggest challenge. It's the Saints' only true cold weather game on the regular season docket. The players will never use it as an excuse, but playing in 20-degree temperatures with a frigid wind and a fresh dusting of snow is an adjustment for a dome team from the South, and that's hard to do. Ed, who's your pick?
Well, my pick is also the Indianapolis Colts, and I'm not going to use video from last year. Let's use video from 2003. Peyton Manning and the Colts, 59 points against the Saints in the Superdome. Now, I'm not saying it's going to happen like that on September 6th, but the Saints secondary, which I think is the biggest question mark on this football team, is going to be severely challenged that night by Peyton Manning and the Indianapolis Colts. Now, you made some changes in the secondary. Maybe as the year goes on, you get a little bit better. Maybe if you're playing this Indianapolis game in November, you've had 8 to 10 games to improve and play better. But I think this is a new scheme, new players. This will be their first full game, and they're going up against a guy who lights up defenses. I think that in itself makes it the toughest road game.
And what a challenging way to start the season, and it should be an excellent barometer game for them. My rationale in selecting the Bears wasn't because I think the Bears are better than the Colts. I just think, if you look at their schedule, it's domes or it's in the South almost the entire year, or it's during the warm weather months. They go up to Chicago, and they told us last year, oh, this guy played in college in the cold weather. It doesn't matter. You're thinking about something else other than your performance on the field when you're bothered by your frigid toes and your fingers and the snow and the wind. And the Saints, although that wasn't the whole reason, the game plan maybe isn't what they should have been against the Bears. They did not perform as well as they should in that environment, and the Bears fans might have had a little something to do with it too. They were pretty nasty.
And I think we can all agree, if that game were played indoors, the outcome may have been far different. But that was bare weather, and it was their day. Back in a minute.
The game is the toughest on the Saints' agenda this season. We'll take a look at whose home field advantage could give the Saints fits.
Who's hot? Who's cold? Who's on the bubble? It's time for a set of roster cuts. How do some Saints longtime veterans deal with cut-down day?
In his second year, Roman Harper is trying to find his role in the Saints' defense, but he's very familiar with the offensive skills of one Chiefs player. Robert O'Shields has the story.
You're watching the Dodge Black and Gold season kickoff.
5 players, which makes tonight's game against the Chiefs especially important for those who occupy that precarious real estate known as the bubble. With the first cuts looming, these tense times also bring out some unusual behavior in the players hoping to save their jobs at all cost.
Saints tight end Billy Miller freely admits to the fact that he's been cut 5 times by NFL teams. By his own guess, the most of any player on the team. He says last year, on the day the Saints were to make their final cuts of the preseason, he took a proactive approach to getting the news.
And I didn't wait. I got up early. I didn't wait for the Turk to come get me. I say, Sean, do you need to see me? He said, actually, I do.
Miller was cut but signed back to the Saints a month and a half later. He says players tried to avoid the Turk at all cost. The Turk, of course, is the messenger sent to summon the player to the coach's office.
Other times you try to come in as late as possible. And hopefully, you know, you feel that if you come in as late as possible and you haven't got a phone call, then you might be okay. I haven't actually come in disguise yet, but I think it's coming. I think this year I'm going to come in with a big afro and a mustache, and maybe they'll just skip it and might not notice me or something.
Saints veterans say players dread getting the news, so they try to isolate themselves as much as possible.
I think what you want to do is keep that phone on. You know,
but that still doesn't work because eventually you have to come into work, so if it doesn't happen on that day, then it may happen when you come in.
Defensive tackle Hollis Thomas can speak from personal experience. During his rookie season with the Eagles, he was an undrafted free agent. Even though he was a second-string player, he was so nervous about getting cut, he didn't return to the team hotel the night the Turk came knocking. Instead, he saw the sights.
Yes, all around town. I learned Philadelphia that day. The nightlife, the day life, and the nightlife.
So you basically stayed up all night then?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
I pretty much, after I left the club, I just went to practice the next day.
And you know what? It worked. Thomas didn't get cut, and he says he hasn't avoided the Turk like that since.
Start the second half.
It's hard for Hollis to avoid anyone. The final preseason game against the Dolphins 1 week from today will serve as the last chance for Saints backups to impress the coaches. Teams must be down to 53 players by Saturday, September 1st. Ed, my guess is Billy Miller's got a pretty fair chance to make this team. I think they'll probably keep 3 tight ends. I think he will be one of those 3 tight ends.
So who's the starter at nose tackle? Hollis Thomas, but barring injury. Hollis Thomas or Kendrick Clancy?
I think it's Kendrick Clancy. I think it's his job for now. I think Hollis certainly has the ability to retake that job at some point during the year. But Kendrick has come in, played well, and they still have to get Hollis's weight under control.
But seriously, when you go into a camp and you're not in a start-over situation with a new coach like you were last year, how many roster spots are really up for grabs?
Not a lot. And additionally, when you talk about big names who are on the bubble with this team, they really don't have any. I mean, Fred Thomas' starting job, he doesn't have that anymore, but I seriously don't think he's going to get cut. Hollis Thomas' starting job is in doubt, but he's not going to get cut either. Most of the guys who will get cut, you probably haven't developed a very close personal relationship with yet.
Okay, so the purging happened last year, right?
It did.
Okay.
They're done with that.
We're done with that.
After an injury-abbreviated rookie season, safety Roman Harper is expected to have a major impact on the Saints' defense this year.
Harper has the reputation as a big hitter, but he might have some reservations about lining up an opposing quarterback tonight in Kansas City, or maybe not. Robert O'Shields joins us with more. Robert.
Guys, Roman Harper and Brody Croyle played together back at the University of Alabama. Harper wasn't allowed to tackle Croyle during their practice days with the Tide, but things are a little bit different now that they're with different teams. Roman Harper, Brody Croyle, 2 years ago, they were wearing crimson and white. How will it feel when they see each other in different color uniforms?
Definitely looking forward to the challenge of going against Brody and his big arm, and he's a great player, so it'll be good to see him.
It's no doubt that the Saints are going with Roman Harper to start off the season, but for the Chiefs, the question still remains. Do they take the young gunslinger of Brody Croyle or the veteran of Damon Heward? Harper is already picking his Alabama teammate.
He's a tough guy, big arm. He's got all the smarts. I think he's got a good moxie about him. I think he's a good quarterback.
But with kickoff just minutes away, the question is, will Roman Harper let up when given the opportunity, or will he roll over his former teammate?
No, I don't think so, man. He'll be able to take a hit anyway. He'll be all right. He'll get up.
Now, Roman said that the one thing that hurt Croyle during the NFL draft was his injuries. He still feels like Brody Croyle will be the man at Kansas City. Guys?
All right, thanks a lot, Robert. Kickoff just a couple of minutes away.
Stay tuned to CW38. We'll be right back. Stewie. The 2 teams meet at the Dome next Thursday night.
The Saints have played the Colts 12 times, the Vikings and the Steelers 11 times, and tonight's matchup with Kansas City is number 9.
And of course, we'll be right back after the game with highlights on ABC 26 News at 10. And we also have, Mr. Norris, a program reminder.
Indeed. Join us Tuesday night for the Dodge LSU Road to a Championship, our 1-hour preseason special.
We chat one-on-one with Les Miles, look ahead to the much-anticipated matchup with Alabama and the story of the LSU Tiger Band desperately in search of new digs on campus. In the meantime, enjoy the game, everybody.
Let me hear you say big things, Bobby, why look, stop it.